And welcome back to ScavTalk, everyone. Today's episode, we discussing the DreamHack Arena event that's coming out, followed by a very cool and exciting video from Bazingarrey. I think that's how you Bazingarrey. I'm not really. That's how I'm going to say it. Who posted a Tarkov wishlist suggestions? I got some traction in the Tarkov community. And then we'll be discussing balancing in FPS games, followed by PUBG extraction shooter. Whoa! And then another extraction shooter that we talked about, did some coverage on previously, and they got a full trailer, essentially. So, Giga, how's it going in Tarkov? What level are you?
I think I'm level 46. I'm either level 46 or 47. I'm pretty sure I'm level 46. Like, once you get to that level, it's kind of all meaningless. There's no, real milestones. It's like level 50, I think, for, what's Crisis, the quest? I can't remember. It's like 50? Not sure.
But there's, for me.
There's very few quests left that are milestones or things that you get to after level 45, I would say, and then you get to those like really nice weeklies, dailies, like you get a bunch of XP, so it doesn't really matter. But like what we've been doing is we finally basically got to the Lightkeeper, nearly, but not quite, but nearly, but we did kind of get there. We had to go through the whole rigmarole as usual of going into the water treatment facility and finding the V3 flash drive. As per, I'm historically extremely unlucky at finding quest items, especially when there's multiple spots. We went through and we tried to find every single. Went to every spot, barring the two that were behind the key that I forgot about that were behind the key, and it was like in one of those rooms. So I had to like go back. But yesterday I managed to go and find it. It was in like spot 10 or 11 or something, which is okay. Not too bad. So I had to go and like flash the drive, but I was already creating something in the Intel Center, so I had to like wait until it was done to then go and flash it. So I flashed it last night to go and flash the transponder doodad. And now the very final part of the thing is to walk across the bridge and go and speak to Lightkeeper, which I haven't done. So we're basically there with Lightkeeper, which is what I wanted to do. That was my main goal, was to get that, just in case something happens later. Like, I think it's a good milestone to just have. Like, I don't have any intention in doing his quests because they don't really give you anything. And I can't imagine that any end of wipe event would be reliant upon the quest that Lightkeeper. I mean, maybe if they are, then I'm going to eat my words, right? But I just don't think so. I think getting to Lightkeeper is the important milestone. Anything after that's just filler content. So we moved on to doing the next thing, which I was yet to do, which is killing Kaban, because he's a bit of a beast, and it's quite hard to get in there. I spent the time in between 24-hour time gatings trying to go to streets and working out that central section, because I've not spent enough dedicated time doing it. Like I've played around 1 or 2 raids here and there, thrown a grenade in, got killed, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not spent enough dedicated time. So after dying probably 10 times to various different things and stupid ways of getting killed by this machine gun or this guy here, or even one of them, which is like really awkward. I came in from the north side, which is like the financial building side, the non-Concordia side. It's the one like actually on the street. And I threw the nade over and all the guys ran around, but I somehow managed to path myself perfectly with a sliver going all the way through into the kind of like right-hand building next to the forklift, and Kaban could see me through this like 5-centimeter wide gap or something, and just like grilled me with BS through the hole, and just full autoed me on the way. And I must have had an RPK on that instance, because I think you can have the PKM, the PKP, and maybe the RPK sometimes.
I think you're right. Yeah,
which is a bit annoying because you need the PKP for Gunsmith. Now I think that it is relatively likely that he spawns with a PKP, but even still, the fact that he can have other stuff, it's a little bit Rashala Golden TT situation, right? Like, you get in, you do the thing, you do the stuff, you go and kill him, and then he doesn't have the thing that you came for. It's like, no, I got to do it again. So painful. But anyway, I spent a bunch of time trying to do that, dying to PMCs and things. Ended up trying to do it at night, which I don't think is a terrible option on streets. Like, it's a little bit less crazy with PMCs, but because there's so many streetlights and stuff, you don't really need nods. Like, I went with the quad nods on, and they do help because they stop the contrast in the dark areas being just unseeable into, if you know what I mean. But and also with the quad nods, it's okay because if you're in the streetlights, you're not completely blinded. You don't have to keep taking them on and off all the time, which is all right. Like, there are some areas that are a bit bright, but it's not too bad. So the high quality MVGs are actually pretty decent. But anyway, went in with those and worked our way through. I think there was somebody, maybe you tried to come in from the other side, it sounded like it, but maybe they got killed or whatever, I don't know. So we were pretty much just in there on our own, like as if we were playing an offline raid against Kaban. Everyone else was doing whatever else people do at nighttime on streets. And yeah, we just kind of got to sort of slowly, piece by piece, walk through, do the grenade thing, go in, whatever, and nearly screwed it up right at the last minute. Ended up in a kind of wall bang battle with Caban, which is never a good idea because he actually had the PKP with BT ammo in it. 762 by 54 RBT, which is terrifying. I got shot once in the stomach and managed to kill him with my 50 round drum RD. And he had the PKP. So nabbed that and took it. And apparently there was an Alton on the floor, but I was like running so fast, I just I just left all the gear. I was like, I need the PKP out of here so I can finish Gunsmith. And yeah, we managed to do that. So it was actually pretty successful. Pretty good stuff. Like get to Lightkeeper basically, other than barring like just go and visit one time and killing Caban, which is cool. So I'm sort of slowly checking off the things that I wanted to do now that we're so far through. People keep asking me about Kappa as well. I still just don't think there's enough time to get it. I'm not sure. Like I need to have a look at the list and see how many quests there are. Like it's probably one of those things where if you could do Shooter Born in Heaven and Tarkov Shooter 8 and Psycho Sniper, then maybe there's a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have to do those quests first, I think, because otherwise you're sort of wasting your time doing all the other stuff if you haven't completed those three, because they're probably the hardest, I would think, out of the whole list. Like Shooter Born's just kind of time consuming, and I guess the same with 8 and Psycho Sniper, so it sort of depends. But you have to use bolties. I'm just not sure if I want to, is the thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, is it a waste of time if you're doing it because you just want to, you know?
Yeah, like the thing is, I don't mind doing some of the other quests. This is the thing. Like I'd hate to do all the other stuff and then get right there. And it's like, oh, I've got to complete these random bolty tasks now, and I just don't like using bolties. I don't like doing them,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel compelled because I'm so close. Rather than, and this is the thing. Yeah, I don't mind doing things like set up. We use the shotguns or whatever. I just don't like bolt actions. They're just it doesn't make sense to me to use them. It's so silly. I feel like there's like ways I can use the shotgun that are sensible. I'm like, okay, I can play in a very deliberate way to make shotguns good. It's very difficult to play in a way that make bolties good, except for like, don't be seen.
Right.
It's like this is categorically worse than everything else in the game. So, play around
Yeah.
that. I don't like bolt actions. And even I keep complaining about Shooterborn in Heaven, and people are like, didn't they change Shooterborn in Heaven? I'm just like, yeah, I didn't like Shooterborn before because 100 meters, and I don't like it now because you have to use a bolt action. Like, I can dislike both. That's fine. That's fine.
Do you like anything, Mr. Streamer?
Not like that. Definitely not. No. I'm an up close and personal kind of player. I am. I'm not really a big sniper. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could do it. Like, I'd nearly finished Shooterborn on Woods, so I don't know. We'll see. Otherwise, yeah, it's been going all right. Going all right. It's fun. I think maybe we'll just mess around and like kill bosses and stuff towards the end. I'm not sure. I haven't quite decided. There's like still some things I want to do. I want to complete Stir Up using the RSH revolver. I think that'll be fun because I haven't completed Stir Up. I basically never use a pistol, so I've got 0 out of 3, and Stir Up's still just sat there waiting to be completed. So we're just gonna get the big iron and go to town.
That could be fun. One wipe I tried it early with the 357 revolver. And
yeah.
I tried using the flesh rounds.
Uh-huh.
And it did not work out well for me. I switched to the actual quote unquote good ones, and it was much easier to do.
Yeah, they're not actually too bad. I used it relatively recently for completing that one where you have to kill enemies. It includes scavs and PMCs, I think, but you basically end up killing scavs. You kill scavs in the mall area. So for that mall cop one, I used it for that, and it was quite fun. I quite enjoyed it. It was okay. But yeah, that one's not terrible. I think it's Magnum FMJ, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, which is all right. They've reordered the wiki list, and it keeps messing me around. They've like changed. They put shotguns at the bottom now. They've like ordered it by, I don't know what they've ordered it by, like cartridge size or something. Because shotguns used to be at the top, but now 762 by 25 Tokarev is at the top on the wiki. Because there's no way. I mean, this is gonna be a really niche specific thing, but I look at this chart like probably 5 times every day. There's no way to reorder it back the way it is. You can't order the calibers. You can only order the. Well, I guess maybe you can. Oh no, you can't. You can only order the actual list, and the list itself is set in some kind of like special format to start with, if that makes sense, because it's done by caliber and then it's done by pen from low to high. But yeah, so they've moved shotguns down to the bottom. So that's that. What was I even looking at? I've got myself like super sidetracked. Oh yes, we were looking at the Magnum FMJ. Yeah, it's 70 damage and 35 pen, so it's actually all right. Actually okay.
Well, should we talk about some of the news that came out this week?
Sure.
For starters, we got Black Friday sale for Escape from Tarkov. And you know the meme. Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and post it. I already know you're going to say it.
I'm looking forward to running into, Jing Lao 6969.
Thank you for making a joke that I hinted at. Yeah, so 20% off. Get your friends in. I mean, I guess the one notable thing is if you don't have EOD, it would be a good time to do it, I would imagine. Because I don't...
It would be.
Maybe they'll do a Christmas sale again, but I don't know.
Yeah. It seems pretty close to Christmas to do another one, I would think. And I think it genuinely is a good time to do a DM1. Or like my video about if you want to get EOD, now's probably the time. That video that I did really brought some salty people out the woodwork. There's a subset of people who are clearly watch a lot of Tarkov videos, but hate the game and hate BSG and hate everything that we stand for as content creators. And
what are they salty about? Were they accusing you of taking big BSG money?
Just everything. I think there was actually, this is kind of like an almost sort of like, this links to something else we're going to talk about later. But this is there's almost a bit of a weird misunderstanding that some people had in there. So it was almost unfortunate that video I did a sponsor for that one, which is for Nakwon, which is the game that we're actually going to talk about in a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to sponsor a video, and I put it on that one. But then some people misunderstood and thought that I was sponsored by BSG, posting about because the video's about buying Tarkov,
right?
And then it's like
I can see the confusion for the average user.
So some people who watched like 3 seconds of the video, right, and saw like #ad in the title, I think was just like, like, isn't this a contradiction or whatever? It's just like if you watch like 10 seconds into the video and saw that there's actually a sponsored segment that it's on the timestamps, but never mind actually reading or looking at any of the details.
You're asking way too much, dude, for the average user. Way too much.
It's quite funny. So that happened, and and there's usually like a tidal wave of people who go like, "Oh, why'd you put #ad in your title? Oh, no one else does it." I'm just like, well, because nobody else does it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea for like me not to do it. Like, I don't care what everybody else does. The UK like guideline says that sponsorships need to be represented prior to the click. It has to be there prior to the click. Anybody who doesn't do that, in theory,
right?
Technically, it's not like it's going to happen, but like, why take the chance anyway?
Right.
So like, you either put it in the thumbnail or the title, and it has to be like prominent, and people have to be able to see it. So I always get like a billion people going like, "Why do you have to put, people think it's the full ad? Oh no, your viewership's going to really suffer." I'm just like, it has literally no impact at all. Anyone who's going to click on the video is just going to click on it anyway. Like, nobody cares. Just check the box and move on.
I could see that. Like, if you want to watch, it's not like #ad or not is going to determine me clicking on a video. Like, it probably has very low impacts because that's not the main drivers. Like, typically the main drivers going to be like what topic interest, like what your actual content you're feeding me, and then that's going to determine via title, thumbnail, and then YouTube's going to determine that based off metrics and whatnot. So it's
exactly. So it was a bit of a crazy thing, and people just being like, "Oh, what is this game?" as well. Like, and I'm like, the game's not even come out. Literally, the thing was just to get like some eyeballs on it. I want to try it. Like, do you guys not want to try it? Do you not want to know that it's coming out? Like, I don't know what people like. What do you even want? I'm not even saying like buy the game. I'm saying sign up for the Steam wishlist and play the free alpha. Like, what?
Right.
Come off it. Like, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of undue outrage.
There's one thing I really dislike about gaming in general, but I'm kind of guilty of it as myself. But it's like this like loyalty with like certain. I mean, it's really outside of gaming, but like brands or like companies or CEOs or whatever, what have you. Like my bias is like Valve. Like I really like Valve's products and their stuff, but like also I try to acknowledge the really bad stuff that they've done and still do. Like in some ways we can thank microtransactions to like Valve, or like Battle Pass. If you hate Battle Passes, you can thank Valve for that. If you hate like, market reselling skins and stuff, you can thank Valve for. Anyways, If you hate like game clients launchers, you can thank Valve for that because they were the first one. Now everything's got to have a its own Epic Games launcher and GOG launcher and all that. It's actually really annoying. Anyways, point being is it's one of those things that like I don't get why people are so like loyal to the game when like the game is like nothing. It's literally you pay money for product. Like you care so like I don't know. It's just weird. It's just fed. It was like
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so the sale is on. If you do want to upgrade to EOD, now is a good time. Obviously, if you've got standard already, like, and this is the thing, I genuinely think it's a good time to upgrade to EOD if you can, and if you want to, and you're going to get Arena for free anyway. I say for free, but like I think the way I broke it down in the video, it's like, it's just the difference between whatever you paid originally. I wonder whether that's like changed now from.
It's probably a lot closer.
Yeah.
Or smaller of a gap, yeah.
Because it's like if you have standard and then EOD's here, and then like part of that's Arena, like 37 euro for us, 37 euros of that is Arena. So the EOD-ness of it is not really that much actually, because like 50 euros of it or whatever that is like the base game, and then it's like the Arena, the EOD bit, and then the Arena bit. And so like who knows what's going to happen afterwards. But yeah, I mean the sales were a good time because you get what's the deal with the Black Friday one? How much is it off?
25%.
25%. Okay, so yeah, you get 25% off the upgrade cost. So. No,
until
consider it.
The 20th at 8:49 p.m. GMT.
The 20th?
25th, sorry.
25th. Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh, so it's already gone by the time this podcast comes out. Rip.
True. So you better get it while you can, folks.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
The other one. Sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. You go.
The DreamHack is partnering, or BSG is partnering with DreamHack on the 14th through the 17th of December to host a official EFT arena. There's gonna be a prize pool of like 100,000 euros, and I think that's kind of all we know about the details. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. So.
Oh, sorry. The important thing to note is like 6 pro teams will compete on a dedicated stage. So pro teams, I'm assuming, is BSG or whoever reached out to a couple of different teams. Maybe it's because I think there was some rumors or talks of maybe BSG even said they had invited some pro players, pro teams. I imagine like Virtus Pro might have been one to play. I think they may even said Virtus Pro did, but they play test arena and like closed beta or something, whatever.
Virtus Pro were the ones who were playtesting it in that little video that they did. That Nikita kind of showcased that one time. That was them. So yeah, I guess they've got like another 5 teams. Maybe Virtus won't even be part of this. I don't know, but
yeah, who knows? They'll
have 6 teams, as you say, 6 professional teams. So I get like it won't be any Tarkov people because there aren't any like Tarkov pro teams. There's teams, but there's no like Tarkov pro teams, which is it's going to be interesting to see like what happened. I wonder if they've had like how much chance they've had to like practice and stuff. Like, have they been given copies and things? I mean, it'd be interesting to know. Or were they just like sit down for the first time, like, right, I played Valorant for the last 3 years or whatever, and yes, before that, I'm sitting down to play my first game of EFT. I imagine not, because that probably wouldn't work that well. But
my experience, living experience, so back in the day, I had to look this up actually because I was interested. And I had to relive 2010 all over again. And man, it was miserable. But back in the day, when I was playing Alliance of Valiant Arms, the shitty Korean Counter-Strike clone that was like ported to the US or whatever, and like some other company that, anyways, there was like a, I don't want to say like an esports scene, but there was like a competitive scene within the community. It was like very small, and at some point, the publisher for the US division, IJJI, they did a tournament way like a year or so before. But then, anyways, when I started getting into it, they did a tournament where they invited pro teams to play. It was like they call it like this ultimate gaming challenge. They like try to promote it a bit, hyped it up a bit. Different articles published about it because it was like. Oh man, now I wish I had the article pulled. I could probably find it, but it was like team complexity from like TF2, Um, gosh, it was like doctors from like Call of Duty. It was like a couple different
Okay,
FPS
yeah.
pro teams. I don't even know if they were like any good pro teams, but anyway, so I had a chance to play in that because my team was like, it was like basically the AVA pros, quote unquote, versus like the esport pros, quote unquote. So
Oh, interesting.
I had a chance to play in that, and we beat a couple. I think we ended up placing fourth in the team. Eventually, the team that, if anybody knows this game, probably knows it from Skadoodle. I guess he's like now a Valorant pro player, but anyways, he played on DEF CON, which was an AVA team, and they ultimately ended up like dominating the pro scene, so to speak, quote unquote. But they ended up competing, going on to like represent USA and the nationals for this game, because it was more these like free to play FPS clones back in the day were like really popular in like Korean stuff, Southeast Asia, I guess. But anyways, long story short, the people, because one of my teammates was like an old school Quake, Wolfenstein player, so like he knew some of the people on the other teams because they like either like played against each other in like older games of previous generations or were teammates. And yeah, he said that like they were not very fond, like they didn't really respect the thing. I don't know why they like in some ways you get invited to play in this event and there's like a cash pool and you think, well, like you could stomp the competition, so it might just be like free cash. But I don't know, I don't know what the incentives are for them to get paid. I don't know the behind the doors, but suffice to say is like, hey, they didn't really respect the game that much. But I don't know, maybe they got, I don't know, I can't really speculate. I don't know for sure if they got like, if their agencies or the orgs got paid to like participate in this. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess that's probably the deal with this. They probably get paid something just for turning up, I suppose. And then there's like this. Maybe it's something small. I'm not sure. But then there's this like prize pool, which it's not a bad prize pool. I don't know like how these things are usually quite top heavy, right? So they're like, I don't know, 70, 20, 10 or something like that for like top 3, something like that maybe. I have no idea. But then split between like 5 players, it ends up not being like as much as you might think. Like the headline prize pools always look very, very high, and then they have to split that with their org usually and whatnot. So,
well, yeah, would they be? Is it just first place, or you think they'll do?
I have no idea. Maybe they would just do first place, to be honest. Just because
they did. That's like a really high. That's pretty good for.
Going to be pretty good
for like low. Kind of looking at it because like I don't know, they might practice, but like a lot of the teams didn't. In my experience, they didn't really practice.
Yeah, maybe they'll just like go and just join. I reckon that they'll probably be, because I think they said for the Virtus guys that they were, even though I can't remember which team it was. Was it like Siege or something? It was like one. It was another. It was like some random team.
I think it was. Siege.
But the guys were like did actually play Tarkov. Like a lot of them had played before. So it wasn't just like they'd never played the game, didn't understand like the mechanics or anything, and just going in for the shooting that they had mostly played. So I imagine that would be similar. Like the guys who are going to be playing this will have like played the base game at least somewhat. I would have thought.
Yeah, that's true. Because essentially it is just Tarkov, right?
Yeah. So yeah, Nikita says, we're excited to debut Escape from Tarkov Arena in Germany to demonstrate our ambition in taking our esports endeavors to the next level. Developing esports title has always been part of our EFT Arena roadmap, and immense popularity and community demand have proven that we're on the right track. Lots of people want to see it, right? So he's kind of right. We see DreamHack Hanover as a great stage for us to showcase the new title and an opportunity to engage and grow our community with esports and other experiential activations on site, whatever that means. But I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be going at this point. It's not that far. Like, I really wanted to go to Vegas, and that is a real ask for me to get to, especially when it like clashed with everything else. But Hanover Hanover's actually closer to me than Berlin, even. So it's really not that far. It's about. I was just like looking up a few different things, and because it's not like Hanover's not really a city that I even really know. It's not inundated with like tourism, I don't believe, and so it's relatively cheap to stay there. So it's quite like a good place to go. It's not like it's in like the middle of Paris or something where it's incredibly expensive to get a hotel and that kind of thing. It's like £130 for flights and like £130 for hotels to stay there the whole time. So I'm like, actually, this is like very doable, and I don't have anything else over that weekend, which is fortunate. So I would say 95% chance that I will be there. So if you're going to be there, or if you're in Germany or near Hanover and you want to come to the event and say hi, like the whole like a weekend festival ticket is only €45. I was pleasantly surprised. There's quite good value. So yeah, I think I'm very likely to be there, which will be good fun and good to see it. Good to see it all happen in person for once. So this will be the first Tarkov event I've ever been to. So
really?
It'd be cool. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
did you?
there
I
haven't
forget.
really
Did
been
you end
any
up
other
going
ones.
to that one? Sort of a pandemic or no? What was?
I went to the Ice Series one, which
Ice
was
Series,
that big
yeah.
LAN. Yeah, I went to that, but that's like multi-game. Like it's very it's a
Okay,
big LAN really. It's
I
like it's the
see.
LAN first and foremost, and it's like gaming festival as well. So there's like other stuff, but
Gotcha.
went there just like met some people and just wandered about. But like there wasn't really that many Tarkov people there.
Right, right.
So this is the first like Tarkov focus thing, because like they're actually an official partner of DreamHack Hanover, as per this announcement, which is quite cool. So, yeah, I wonder who's there. I guess they'll at least be, the community managers and that kind of thing. I don't know if the big man himself will be there, but we'll see. Maybe, right, with the, the first arena tourney. Who knows? Maybe he'll want to be there to see himself, potentially. So, yeah, all remains to be seen. So that's going to be good fun.
Okay, so yeah, what do you want to talk about next? You want to just jump into the video?
Yeah, probably. I think that's kind of like the meat of the main topic that I am sort of looking at. I've been thinking about this week. So there was a video, I think Church said before, but I don't know how you pronounce his name. It's either Bazingarrey or Bazingarrey, or Bazingarrey, something like that. But anyway, I've seen this person's videos before. Like I like recognize their name, and I can't remember where this. I think. Okay, so I saw the video pop up, and it's called "A Wish List for a Better Tarkov Experience." It doesn't actually have as many views as I thought it would get, like 23K. But I saw it and meant to watch it, and then forgot. And then a Discord community member messaged me and said, "Oh, by the way, your video is referenced in this video."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." It reminded me that it existed, and I went to watch it, and then I suddenly remembered that I have seen this person's videos before, and they're like one of these, Blender like video production-y, like a crazy editing, like Junker style person, and then they've got insane skills. Insane skills. So this person is like so good at just putting together videos. It's like one of the more nicely composed videos I've seen in a long time. It's just like all the little bits in between. It must take them absolutely ages to do it. But
yeah, a lot of
in
time and
between
labor.
all of that, there's a whole bunch of wishlist stuff, which I think is interesting. There's like various different perspectives. Like not enough of these videos come out, I think, in a nice format to just be detailed down and have been like scripted and thought through completely. And I think a lot of the stuff in here is actually pretty good. And some of the elements are a little bit different to ones that like me or Jesse or like other people have talked about before, which is cool. Some of them are the same, but some of the others are a bit different. So the first section is all about visuals, basically. So it's about like fog, which we know about, but I don't know exactly how they do this stuff. So yeah, you've got the graphics overhaul stuff on the screen if you're watching it with video, but they clearly have some version of I wouldn't not necessarily going to say SPT, but it's the ability to import stuff in and edit edit things within the game that it wouldn't be possible to edit just using, like, maybe you could do it with filters, but I think it's some kind of like either import into Blender. Like when people did the lighting changes on Interchange, like we talked about it before, it's like not necessarily in the game engine, but you can like import all the assets and then like you can render it as its own thing and like fly through it or whatever. Like you don't necessarily need to be running like the game. You don't need to be running SPT necessarily for it if you can get the assets into Blender. But anyway, so they showcased like a bunch of different places around the map and were talking about how fog at a distance is too strong. Basically, when it's light, I think there's one particular lighting mode that actually looks good in Tarkov, and it's when it's like completely clear, no clouds in the sky, the sun is shining, and everything's like actually lit up, and you can see for a long way, and the fog very gradually comes in at like much longer distances. To be honest, it's probably still too strong even then. But those are the only times where you can like really do sniping over 200, 300 meters and actually see what's going on. And so their point is that, fog at distance is too strong pretty much all the time, and which makes sniping in like high-powered optics just bad. Like we have these really long-range scopes in the game, but you just can't use them because you can't see far enough, even with a clear line of sight, because the fog is there and it's just impossible to actually use them, even for what they're intended for. And so they did like a load of before and after shots, like clearing up stuff, and also in interchange as well. It's like shadows inside are too dark. Like we know about this. There's basically some weird filter across the whole screen that you can't fix just using NVIDIA control panel or the in-game whatever. Like it's always there no matter what, and it's always like slightly too dusty. And their point there was that promotes camping as well, because there's like quite a few spots that they showcased where somebody's lying down, and even if you're looking at them, because of the grayness of the terrain and stuff, even with the interchanged lighting rework, you still can't see them until they fire their gun. They're just a grey outline and a grey background, and you just can't see them. But if you change the way the lighting works, you can actually see the people leaning out because their outline is distinct enough from the background to be able to see them. And so it would their point is that it would nerf camping, because you would then be able to see people who are prone, leaning, just hiding in the shadows much more easily. Which I think is an interesting point. Like, I've not really considered the balancing impact of graphics in that way.
Yeah, it's a tricky subject. Let me say this first because I can't get this out of my head. Is I think, to answer, my speculation is that this was an SBT.
It probably is.
I just have to get that out of my head because I'll probably come back to that point later. But anywho, yeah, it's a tricky thing, because on one hand, I can understand wanting to design a game where you want to take into account your surroundings and how visible you are or aren't. Which is tricky because you would need to have, like, I don't know, it's just a little tricky because you would need to like first see the area that's dark and then go there, unless you're already in there. Like, I mean, I can't like take a selfie of my PMC to see how like the skies are visible I am. You know what I mean? But with enough like map knowledge and awareness, like you can, like, a common thing is like skylining, where you're like the sky is behind you so you stick out. So I can understand, wanting to like design that into the game. I think for me personally, the big gripes with the lighting is like that yellow, filter-ish. It's like a yellow dingy filter that's just like pasted on everything. It's just permanent, which just kind of skews things, makes it less clear. And I think the fog is just a bit much. Like, I don't know how you do that in a way, because if you completely remove it, I think it's too strong.
Yeah, like I think there's one now where there's a shoreline picture up right now in the video, and that's just like, it just shows like how crazy it is, like it really doesn't need to be that extreme.
Yeah, I mean, on both ends, I think it's like, if I just go back,
even with the MVGs, just like
So he's like, for the audio listeners, he is like on top of rock passage on shoreline, looking towards.
You mean is it tunnel?
Yeah, tunnel. I'm sorry. The top of the extract camping spot, looking towards effectively the road that leads to like military base CCP, or gas station and pier, and like the fog version, the vanilla version, you can't see past like the boat, the what's it called, the barge.
I don't know
what
it is. Yeah, some kind of like rusted barge thing that connects to Scav Island.
Yeah, and everything else just like fog. You can like kind of make out buildings in the background, but you can't really see the road or nothing. And this is another point I wanted to mention, was like, in the fogginess of it all, it's like you need the high power scopes to see them, because you need to see like the the 1% difference between the gray pixel and the non-gray pixel, and the one gray pixel that is the enemy and the other one that is not the enemy. But like, it's like you need it, but it sucks because it's not a great experience to begin with. You know what I mean? It's just like it's a very weird relationship there. And then to describe the non-fog version, like I don't know if there's let's see, max level detail. Okay, so this is no fog according to the picture here, and it's like you can see all the way down the road. You can see the pier. You can see the military base CCP, the shipment containers, the whatever else is. You can probably see into like terminal, like you know what I mean. You can see like it's. I think it's too much, but like there's got to be some play here because to me it's like the fogginess of it all just makes so many situations in general worse, and like it's like a global thing that you don't really have any say over, you know what I mean? Because it's like my understanding, if I had to guess, there's like fog that's like drawn around the player, so as you move the fog moves with you, so to speak. That would be my guess and understanding. There might be some like pre-baked fog around the map. I don't really know. I know like the weather affects it, there's parameters, but anyways, I guess my point is like we can have like a little bit of like fog for like the sake of scenery. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to see like a perfectly clear streets tower in the background when I'm playing on customs. Like I don't really need to see that. You know what I mean? But like it would be nice to be able to have lower fog in general because it kind of like elevates everything. Like when you're inside dorms, you still have the fog around. So it's like, you know, whether you're inside or outside, it doesn't really matter. It's just like constantly being drawn around you. So it's just really annoying. It's like wherever you go, it just makes everything like I on one hand I like it, but I just don't know how you balance it out where it like kind of you can keep the parts where it's like I need to be aware of my surroundings, but on the other hand you can take the advantages of like clarity is good, so that way I can see better and react to things more effectively. Because that's kind of part of the problem for me is like when everything is just like a visual blur, it's like you're instead of like playing the game where you're trying to spot everything from every possible angle because there's like a million different angles in Tarkov. You just play the game where you're reactive, where you just sprint around like a chicken with his head cut off, and when you get shot at and they inevitably miss because you know recoil, or maybe they don't miss, whatever, you just take the L. But you react to them that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird. It's very. I don't really see the downside in changing it, right? So at least like the way the fog is now, if you just pushed it out a bunch, like firstly, yeah, it's not really realistic to have it like that. It's just like this so often with the fog that is close enough. And okay, here's the problem for me with it. The fog is close enough to have sensible engagements with a voodoo. So often you two are like the two players can spot each other in the fog and you're shooting at each other just at the visual range of like shooting at like the grey blob against the other grey blob. And that experience, as you said, is really bad. Whereas in a game like DayZ, they've got a completely opposite approach to it, where I don't think there's any fog in DayZ at all. And you can see people from like miles away, like miles and miles and miles away. But to the extent at which, 99% of the time, you don't have a chance of actually shooting and hitting them. But it's more about like scouting, right? And in that way, you would see people and be like, oh, okay, there's somebody over there. And it's like information gathering without necessarily, you could decide, oh, I'm going to path to them, gradually. But I don't think that would necessarily make Tarkov like worse to see people long ways away. Like how many sightlines are there actually that let you do that to begin with? Not that many. And secondly, yeah, even if you did see somebody like miles away at a range the way you can't even hit them, like, is that necessarily that bad? It's like, okay, well, I know where they are. I've roughly got an idea of another PMC. I feel like it would actually make the game better. So yeah, I wouldn't mind like, the distant fog be at a point at which it's sort of aesthetically pleasing. So it's like, okay, landscape in the distance is slightly obscured. But anything like on the actual map itself, like you could add the tiniest little bit for distance, but have it so that it's still shootable. Players are still very much distinct from the landscape at those ranges, unless of course it is actually foggy. But I think people take most offense to it when it's just like, clouded sky, or when it goes overcast, like the sun is out and it's fine. It's kind of actually like that's all right. And then a cloud comes over and blocks the sun, and then everything gets this weird fog thing because it's like the sun was like penetrating through the rays. Like, but that's just not really how it works in real life, right? Like the whole terrain doesn't all suddenly get foggy because the sun's gone. Like things are just a little bit less bright than they were.
What I would have to guess is that because the way the lighting is, like with the sun being out, the fog is less egregious because it's like cranking up the brightness on it, so to speak. Whereas when the sun is hidden, the brightness on the, effectively the entire level brightness has been lowered. So then it kind of makes the fog more egregious because the fog is essentially just adding noise to it.
Yeah, it's like almost like a set brightness for the fog, and then when the terrain brightness goes down,
right,
the fog brightness stays the same, so it ends up obscuring. You almost need to have like the fog brightness like just scale with the weather. Like if you could have it look all the time like it looks when it's clear, so long as I said, it's not like raining or actually foggy, that would be a lot better, I think.
I kind of like I don't know if this is what you're saying, but I would like that approach where it's like you have events, kind of like how they do now, where it's like it's raining, so like visibility is reduced, noise is not as good, reliable. It's foggy, so now visibility is reduced. It's whatever. Instead of having it, because like right now we kind of have that, but because we have the fogginess in general, it makes that it just kind of feels like, oh, now it's worse. It's like it's raining. Great, now it's going to be even worse of experience. Like, dude, rain. It was weird on interchange. If it was like raining or foggy, like it just made interchange that much worse previously because that would elevate the fogginess of it. Like you could be on the second floor and like looking across on the on one side of the escalators to like the other side, or like food court to like the other side of the mall, right? And you literally could not see them. Like I was remembering that we have instances where you would be looking at what we call like big window, or like the main entrance to Ultra, from like the top of the escalators all the way on the opposite side, and it'd be so like bright and foggy because for some reason when it was like foggy, the fog indoors became brighter. That was just like, it was just a mess. You could not see anything. It was awful.
Yeah, so that's like one of the main parts of the start. Also about bloom as well, which is something I hadn't really thought about, but it is a thing. Certain aspects are too bright. I mean, maybe it could be turned down, but that was another one of their criticisms about the visuals. The next part was a little. There was something I wasn't sure about it. They said like about impact effects of like powerful calibers. They were basically saying there wasn't enough like dismemberment and like blood and gore or whatever, especially for shotguns and 7.62 by X and higher. I don't know whether I really care so much about that, but the producer of the video said that the guns feel to them very like not impactful enough because of the way that they've like visually represented. There's not enough like PMC impact. Is that something you care about as a player?
Personally, no. I mean, like maybe it's not high on my priority list. You know what I mean? Like it is nice to have a powerful weapon feel powerful through the gameplay. You know what I mean? Like it would be very what's the word? Not weird, but like contradictory or something to have like a big giant hand cannon of a shotgun, and when you shoot it goes pew. It'd just be like, it just feel weak, when it's supposed to be this big old blunderbuss thing, So like, I mean, sure, there's like something there, but for me, it's not. I really don't care. I could like take it or leave it. Probably more on the leave it side personally.
Yeah.
But
I think so, especially given it's like dev work. It's not just like tweaks, It's proper like dismemberment effects and blah blah. Like maybe you could turn it up a little bit, but also I get one funny thing though is like for me as a creator, I'm just kind of like, don't turn it up too much because YouTube starts taking.
That's like the other part. It's like, do we really want it to be like super gory? Like, what's
I guess
like,
you could turn it up and down, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like toggleable, like that would help. But you know what I mean? It's just kind of one of those things where it's like I said, it's not very high on my priority list because it's not like a gameplay feature so much. I mean, there's like a little bit of elements that could be interesting. Like you would have blood on your face shield, you have to like wipe it off and such.
Oh yeah, because they were talking about that, weren't they? Yeah, about like, or if you shoot somebody with a face shield, then you put the face shield on and it's like got blood on the inside, kind of thing. Like some of the little details like that, which would again, it'd be cool. But there's lots of stuff that'd be cool in Tarkov where we think, well, do we actually want these? Like, it's really a prioritization exercise at this point, as opposed to, oh, this sounds great,
Yeah,
But
I like Tarkov for the gameplay. I don't like it because it's simulating real life. That's kind of my approach. So like I don't really care. Like I'm more of a leave it guy. Like I really don't need to see
mm,
blood and gore being spewed across my screen while I'm
mhm.
playing a video game.
So talking about like guns and shooting, there was also they proposed like the recall rework as well, with the admittance that like yeah, BSG are already gonna do that. I wasn't 100% sure. It sort of looks like the system that they proposed, to be honest. It looks similar. Because they did, I guess this is like the one criticism, well, one of the criticisms of the video that I would make is that I don't think they detail exactly what they did. So they showcased recoil, presumably
Mhm.
in SPT or whatever, but what they actually did to it and how it handles, like they show it without controlling it, they show it with controlling it, but it's hard to know precisely like how that differs from what BSG has showcased. If you know what I mean, it looks more like the standard like it just goes up every time you pull down to compensate, but there's no the camera recoil and the weapon recoil are aligned so that you can always ADS and like look down the sights. So if you're using an iron sight, for example, the iron sights never misalign. That seems to be the fundamentals of it. It always goes up. You have to pull down, and the sights always are aligned. I think, but it was kind of hard to tell. It was kind of hard to tell what they did, and like whether that's any different from BSG's approach. I don't really know. I don't feel like that was necessarily detailed enough. Um, there were two parts of it that they did go into though. Firstly, was going full auto would lose arm stamina at a quicker rate, which I thought was
Mhm.
kind of interesting. So
Yeah,
as you
same.
each shot, it's like the arm stamina goes down. So if you want to do a full, then it's just you just tank your arm stamina. Maybe that'd be good. I don't know.
I would actually really like to see more elements of that being incorporated, like more systems you need to manage. Because like right now, like health and energy, they're kind of like an afterthought. Like they're important, but like only in like certain scenarios. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Like either I'm running low and I need to think about it, or I'm out. I need to do something immediately. It's kind of the only two scenarios that really matters. Maybe like leveling, but whatever. Point being is like same with arm stamina. It's like it's very like it doesn't feel like it matters all that much. It's like, oh, I'm holding an angle too long, just take it off. That's one thing I liked about the realism mod was you had an option to turn on these stances where you get like different
Mm.
pros and cons to each stance, and essentially having no stance or having the gun at the ready, not ADS, but that would like constantly drain stamina, and that would scale of like the weight of the gun. So there's some really interesting, choices and like strategies involved. Because like if you wanted to go, like SMGs kind of got a buff in a sense where they weighed less, so they didn't drain as much arm stamina, so you could like always
Yeah.
have them at the ready. Whereas like these big heavy guns, they like the Scar H for example, like it was like eating stamina, so I had to like put it in a different, have it lowered or raise it up high or whatever. And it was fun to like manage that aspect.
Yeah. See, that's cool as well, and that gives that balancing feature for the big, long, heavy guns, which are typically the Tarkov meta because of the recoil system and the way that modding works, versus SMGs. Like we've talked before about things like this, having move speed increases when you're ADS with SMGs versus regular weapons, or just based on the weapon weight, something like that, to try and close that gap. Because, yeah, people just strap on the largest, highest caliber, most powerful bullets that they can in the longest possible gun, unless you're going inside. Some people do try to shorten it down. That's why people have historically liked the Black MDR. But yeah, it's kind of an afterthought, right? It's like weapon power comes first, and then recoil, and then length, maybe in like a distant third.
Hmm.
Mm. And then yeah, and then they also completely agreed with the multiplicative thing that I was been talking about to close the gap between the meta weapons and stock weapons, just to reduce the disparity between a 28 recoil M4 versus 75 or 80 at stock. And that was the piece of my video that they actually took. They just took the charts, the little Excel bits, which I was like, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I thought that was cool.
Every sensible person loves the multiplicative system. Everyone. It was almost impossible to argue against it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's little downsides. I mean, you could argue one. I mean, I could think of a couple. You could argue like one downside is like progression is less meaningful, which I just sure, but I don't know if that's like really a bad thing in the world of Tarkov. But
Yeah.
I think the upsides outweigh the cons personally.
What was next?
Yeah, I would
yes.
I was gonna say a few more things about
Of course, yeah. Recall, go for it.
I guess. Yeah, actually, I don't know. The only thing I was gonna say really was I just wonder. We just have to see once we get the new system, because I just wonder how much of, because as you said, he didn't like detail any specifics, and I don't know if he's going to, like, if he did that. I'm assuming he did that intentionally, because this is kind of the weird gray. Okay, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. I believe that like 90% of what was in this video was just straight up SPT mods. Having played it and experienced myself. And so it's kind of unfortunate that, and I don't say that to like disparage the person that made this video at all. It's more of like a praise or a testament to the SPT, because I think they have some really cool and clever ideas, and like BSG could take a look at this stuff and, evolve, adapt, whatever, get inspired or whatever. And it's like, they don't have to like a lot of these guys too, they like straight up just post their source code, which I don't know how useful that would be. It could, I don't honestly don't know. I don't know enough about, so I'm not even gonna speculate. But point being is, it's just like, it feels like it's free real estate that's not really eating up anything besides like someone like looking into it. You know what I mean? That's just like, I just don't know why they're so allergic to it. And then it sucks because it's like, I could just like detail everything out, or like post a link and like, hey, go check this out. But then it's like, oh, I'm gonna get banned, and then I'm gonna get demonetized in this video. And like, because like in some ways there's incentive for this person to make this type of video, that there's like financial incentive, whatever. And it's like, good for you, do that stuff. Like, that's kind of the thing I'm intrigued about this type of content, is like, on one hand, I'm gonna go off on a rabbit hole, but like on one hand, it's like I could do all this labor and like, okay, BSG, here's how you fix it, here's how you design the perfect system, here's how you do it, and then it's like, well, I'm just kind of just like handing over free label to BSG, but let me at least make a good video that's like entertaining and like can get me some money. But that's like, how do you do that? It's like, it's really, it's a weird place to be, but it's just kind of unfortunate that I feel like the people in general can't be like very direct in how they're presenting this type of stuff, because fear of repercussion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, absolutely. Sure, BSG's in there, right? But I just feel like, in some ways, like, why, like, you're practically getting free labor here. It's like, why? I don't understand it.
Yeah, and it's like, you don't need to incorporate anything they do. Just use it, like,
like, yeah.
You don't even have to like use it, and like, you don't even have to use the code, anything. Just at least look. I mean, maybe they are, but like, they can never actually say, right?
Oh, why not? They're the ruling.
Well, because they don't want to be seen to endorse it or whatever, right? So even if they were like,
they're the ones in charge, so to speak. So like, who cares? They're the only ones that have issue with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I still don't fully understand their rationale, right? Like, if it's to do with hacking and things, then like, it's a hard line for them to tread, I think. But I don't know. It's tricky.
The only thing I could think of is they're worried about like a coup or like a takeover. Like, I mean, we kind of seen a little bit of this with like that whole like labs.
It's such a different thing, though, right? Like, there's only a niche community that's going to care about that stuff, surely. I mean, maybe they think, oh, maybe it'll grow, though. Maybe,
Well, there's like a couple, like, one you could think about, like, this, if it were to grow so popular and it was just so much, it was a better product than, hypothetically, Tarkov, and they had like, all the features, better anti-cheat, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, this is all hypothetical. Then like, technically they have like totally stolen all of BSG's assets. And if they start selling the product, it's like, well, that's like a big, you know what I mean? And you think about, if you're going to have servers and anti-cheat, how are you going to fund that? You got to sell something. So it's like, there's like a lot of like, I could see they want to like protect their IP and like their business and money maker. I could see that, but I just don't. And maybe the other argument is, well, they want to do single player mode eventually, and this is like cutting into that. But I just feel like a lot of the stuff I see here is like, again, you don't pay for anything. At best, the people put their link for their donation in there. Hey, if you want to donate, I do all this. I work 9 to 5 just like you, but I do this on the side for fun. And it's like they're actively doing things to solve real issues.
Yeah,
I just don't know. It's like I'll never understand it until I hear it from like someone at the stream themselves, like a reason why. But
no, I agree. I agree. They're over allergic to it, I think, because like that's the thing, because Tarkov doesn't have mod support. That kind of opens the floodgates in the first place. Like if Tarkov had mod support, then people wouldn't need to do this. It's like, oh, they're reverse engineering our code. Yeah, because there's literally no other way to do it. Like people are going to do it no matter whether you. It's a bit like hackers, right? The passionate mod and dev community will break your game and they will yoink it and do stuff with it. There's no two ways about it. It's just going to happen. So other games have thrived with mod support, but BSG don't want to go down that route for their own reasons. So they're sort of like philosophically incapable of admitting taking feedback from it, which is, as we said, is a shame. Because there are some great ideas. Such as zoom variables with a small animation. So having like variable zoom for like voodoo and stuff, but having it come out slightly. I put it in the video a little bit. Yeah, so like either having like a small animation for changing the variability, like especially on the one with the holographic that like switches out. I know that scope is just garbage in general, but like if that got fixed, then that would be kind of interesting and a good way to balance the LPVOs to have an animation to actually change that the scope power or whichever, so that you're not just like clicking in and out. Because right now it is crazy that you could be in like 6x mode and then just like click to 1x mode. There's a reason why people use them almost in every raid, because if you've got a one to something scope, the one, as long as the one times is actually usable, then you could just use it in CQB. Like I do it all the time.
right.
I don't really use Cantids. I just tend to use the one times on the Voodoo, the Razor, the Schmidt, whichever one I'm using, or the Alcan. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting that we don't have it in the game yet. Like I'm not. Maybe it's just. I don't know. I won't speculate, but it's fine. The toggle system is fine, but I feel like it could be better.
My understanding of it is that at the minute it's set up just as like they're like each one is its own distinct profile. So you'd have to completely reconfigure the way that the zooming model works without like putting in 10 different profiles for every scope for like each zoom level and stuff. Like maybe you could make that work, but like a smooth zoom, I don't think it's possible because of the way it's designed right now. Is my understanding of it, but yeah, it'd be interesting. They also like suggested adding the no FOV change as like an option when you right click. I do it sometimes when it's normally when I'm fighting AI and I'm using the small lean, because it ends up those keys actually interact with each other in the way that allows me to do the thing, but I do it by accident. I've still never seriously used it for like a full raid to see how it feels, like not changing the FOV when you ADS. Some people do prefer it, but I just don't know if it's actually better.
Well, I think having the option is going to be better by default because you get choice to people. I think that's fair to say. But anyway, my main there's a couple things to say. So one is FOV, depending on how it's done, affects sensitivity, like FOV changes. Like I've been playing a lot of BattleBit recently, and I was trying to like play with sensitivity because they got like kind of like your
all the sliders.
Yeah, it's like you got your effectively hip fire sensitivity, and then you got your ADS sensitivity, and then you got all your individual scope sensitivities, right? 1 through 8 or whatever it goes up to. And how it works is each scope has its own FOV that it fixes to. So like in the first person, the hip fire mode, quote unquote, you can set your ADS and or your FOV in the settings from from like 120 or 60 to like 120, right? But when you go into 1x, it locks at 60 FOV, and then when you go in 2x, it locks at 45 FOV, and you go so on and so on. And what happens there is the way that the camera effectively, because we're playing a video game and it's a camera, the way that the camera systematically approaches FOV can affect how your sensitivity of your game gets changed. There's like a whole, I think, acronym for like film or something, and there's like some that use length measurement. Anyways, point being, they're also, because like this topic kind of like bleeds into another one, which is like sensitivity and stuff, and like I really want it to be like in a way where it's configurable, because it's so, I even had a hard time with Battle of it because I had to do like this math where I took because I wanted to get my sensitivity 1:1, but I'm playing on like 103 FOV, and then when I ADS, depending on the scope I'm using, it goes to a different FOV, which then multiplies affects the sensitivity. So you have to like take the percentage difference there and then multiply it, and then if your hipfire sensitivity and your ADS sensitivity aren't the same, then the 1:1, the thing's off. So there's like all this math you got to do. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
But having something more like congruent, where it's like a couple of games have this. Uniform aim, I think, is like the general concept. But like Rainbow Six Siege, for example, did something like they previously weren't like this, and now they are, where there's only like a few knobs. Well, there's like a lot of knobs, but like it's uniform, right? So if you change it here, it changes it there. Like it keeps everything, gives you a lot of control, and it just I don't know. For me personally, it's like one of those things where it makes the enjoyment factor of the game so much more better. But back to the FOV topic. I got way off there. I personally like having a little bit of FOV zoom when I ADS, like in BattleBit, for example, because it goes from 103 to 60. It's like you effectively, when you're running around scanning the area, you have all this field of view effectively, and then when I want to see the target, I ADS, and then I get locked to 60, so it like zooms in on them effectively. So it's kind of nice to have that. But I have played SBT with the mods that don't have that zoom, and it feels fine. Like it's okay. But the one feature that I liked was, which DayZ has something similar, is a separate zoom key where you sort of like focus your eyesight, and you zoom in a little bit, and I actually really like that, because there's like some situations where you want to ADS but you don't really want to have your camera zoom, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you do. I mean, it's just kind of nice, and plus you could like zoom while not ADSing. Sometimes that was useful. Like there's more choices, things like this I like. At the bare minimum, I would say like having the option to toggle it on or off would be nice.
Yeah, this is true. It's funny how it just turned up accidentally, right? Like they blocked turning while you were in ADS, and then they put it back, and it's like, oh, and now you can do this thing that wasn't intended. But it's kind of funny, really. What else? So, yeah, they were talking about like blocking ADS with face shields. I think that's like, that's fine. There's not too much to say. Unless you're using a pistol or a special stock that comes under the face shield. Like there's lots of weird stuff that like clips in at the moment, and it makes MVGs and face shields. Like I think this was maybe more of an argument back in the day when face shields were used all the time, but like hardly anybody uses a face shield now. Like I just never see them in raid. Like no one wears them. People can't really wear the Alton anymore because you can't buy it. So they're like super rare, so people tend not to take them out unless they're really just wanting to like chat out. But nobody wears the multi-hit ballistic face shield anymore. I think that might be down to, I wonder whether it's just like the player base, right? Because like people used to use all sorts of stuff. I feel like, and creators like me are partly to blame, but like everybody kind of knows what the thresholds are for using what bullets against what things. And now because everybody uses like good stuff most of the time, your class 3 face shield just doesn't do anything. Really doesn't do anything. Like occasionally it's good against scavs, but even with the multi-hit one, it's like it only protects the face, not the ears. And it's hard to get unless you're wearing like a really, really high tier helmet. then you won't have ears protection anyway. And even if you do, it's class 3. So most people are like, well, I'd rather just go with the ULAC, then I get class 4 on the ears too, and I'll just leave my face unprotected, because if I get hit there, then it'll just be I'll just eat the L. But I just never see them now. I don't, and they also locked it behind samples, so people and they're probably too much either.
That's probably another big factor, is that they're locked behind samples. Like the good ones are banned off the flea. Yeah. I mean,
banned off the flea behind samples cost too much money. I think it's like 60k for a multi-hit, something like that. But it's just too much. I think people might wear them if they were like 20 or 30.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not.
That is kind of like,
sure.
It's the cost of like 2 nades, or like cost of a stim. And it might save my face from a buckshot scav, like potentially.
I feel like there's a lot of contributing factors. I mean, like you said, the meta has been like the same and figured out for quite some time. Plus, it's changed where flea market is not as good as it used to be, both in terms of buying and selling. Bitcoin is like, I guess I don't know what's Bitcoin at. Wasn't it selling for a lot recently? Whatever. Point is, there was a lot of money back in the day, so maybe you were like, oh, whatever, I'll buy a class 3 face shield, even though everyone's probably running with a Golnik and whatever, and N995 back in the day, those were popular. So there's probably a lot of factors. But I will say, if they ever do like reduce the availability of high tier ammo, which would be like a buff to face shields, then this feature would be a good balancing feature, and also very on point for Tarkov to maintain the realism quota, because it is very unrealistic that you can shoulder the gun with the face shield clipping through it and iron sighting. And yeah, there was like a cool another thing with the realism on it. There was a another stance that would like I could only get it to work with face shields and MVGs, but if it wasn't compatible, the gun you're using wasn't compatible with face shields, then you would, when you would go to ADS, you would like cant the entire gun. I don't know if that's the right word, but you would angle it like 45 degrees, which was kind of interesting. Like, I'm not sure you still weren't looking down the sights, but you were like closer to the gun itself. So it was like more, relatively speaking, easier to aim with, because it was relatively closer to your eyesight, but it wasn't like,
it's not like point fire. It's like, it's like right, you're like looking like right down the barrel kind of thing.
And if you had a laser on there, it was like it felt really good. So yeah, that's another thing they could maybe do if they wanted to. But
yeah, because it does look awesome with the laser, especially. It's like very like Call of Duty, I think.
Call of Duty, exactly.
For night raids,
or
night, the night missions where you like that with the go man. Yeah, it just feels very, very operator. It's very cool. So the next one was a very interesting one, actually. About the weight system. Like, we've talked about the weight system before, and I think really the main argument was just for scaling the weight system more gradually, like kind of like we talked about, but as the debuffs add together as you go up, rather than it just being like all of a sudden you get loaded with like lower move speed, lower ergo, lower this, lower that, and like less stamina, blah blah blah. There's like on the video it shows, I think it's just like lower movement first and then lower something else, lower something. Like each time you get to a threshold, it kind of, or even have them gradually come in, I suppose, which is usually my preference, so that people don't game the thresholds, but have these things come in gradually as you go through the weight, the different weights, I suppose, until you end up with like kind of what you have now at high weight. But there was like one mechanic in there that I thought was really nice, which is kind of combating people's discussions about being punished for looting and blah blah, but it was like a comfort mechanic for the rucksack, for the bags. I thought that was a really cool idea. So you have like the crappy bags, like the sling bags, like awful to carry stuff in. I've run to a train before with the sling bag on. It is not nice. Whereas if you have a an actual like proper rucksack, they were basically saying like a comfort mechanic which reduces the weight of the items inside by like a certain percentage. So if your comfort's like, I don't know, 120%, then you get 20% off the weight of the items in the bag, something like that, so you can carry more if you're carrying like a high quality bag with more ergonomic features to it. But like, I think that'd be kind of nice. That would allow people to like amplify a little bit while still sticking with the weight system that we have right now, because I think that's all it needs. I think it just needs a little bit of like detuning slightly, as they said, like making it slightly more scaled in, and potentially allowing people to take a little bit more out before they're highly over encumbered. And I think that would go a long way to help that. I quite liked that idea.
Yeah, I like I like it as well. I think it's a very good, like, things like this that aren't intrinsic to real life. You know what I mean? Because like
Mm.
sometimes, like when it comes to balancing, it feels like sometimes they don't have a lot of knobs to turn because, like, for example, the weight of a particular item, it's like they, by BSG's criteria, I feel like they don't really want to like change it to be unrealistic. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room with something, but it's like, they did that one update where like these weapon parts were like not the right weight and now they are the right weight, and it was like, 0.4 kilograms of difference. Like how much does this
Hmm.
really matter? It's like it wasn't even like a balance thing, it was just like a correcting the record type of thing. But like something like this, it's more like nebulous, like comforts. It's not like, I can measure my backpack's comfort on a scale or something. You know what I mean? It's like, so it gives them a
Yeah,
knob to like play with, and that could like do some balancing stuff, which is like stuff like that I really want more of in Tarkov in general.
I think that's a really good point because carrying, I don't know what, but what's a sort of classic item in Tarkov that's
Double A
relatively heavy?
battery.
Ye-
Oh, heavy. My bad.
A
Tank
car
battery.
battery, then I suppose.
Yeah.
Tank battery's probably too far, but like, carrying a car battery in your arms
Hmm.
quite clearly feels a lot heavier than having it in a rucksack that's like on your back, over your shoulders. Is just a very different thing, and it
Hmm.
feels lighter, right? Or it's like at least easier to carry. So
Yeah.
having a measure for that, it's not unrealistic, but as you say, it gives them something that's not like they can't be like held to the weight of the Tasmanian Tiger
Right.
35 rucksack, right? But it's like, oh, how do you measure the comfort? Okay, well, it gives us some way of like retuning the weight system, and we can turn those dials up and down without having to change like every single item in the game and applying like, oh, you know, Dimitri has to go and multiply the database by 0.9 again to try and like get it to the right thing, and they end up like forgetting about a load of items and going to the wrong. Like this, just it's an easy catch-all. It's easy to code,
Hmm.
or easy to, from a programming perspective, to fiddle with without having to mess about with everything. Right? It's like when they changed all the turn speed stuff for armors and the headsets and blah blah blah, but they forgot about like the Aventail and the face shields and stuff. Right? It's like, oh, because they were from a different category. It's like it's so easy to overlook that stuff when you're just making a couple of changes. Um, it would be good. I really would quite like it actually, and it doesn't even need to be that much to start with. Like, you could make 20% like the most comfort, like the best comfort level, and scale it in and just kind of see how it feels, and sort of balance it that way as well. Like it'd be good. I like the idea of it a lot.
Yeah. And I like his approach to the stage system, or like the way the overweight scales. Like just as a brief for the audio listeners, like there's stage 1, movement speeds decrease. Stage 2, you add in fall damage increase. Stage 3, you add in stamina drain increase. Stage 4, you add in reduced jump height. So you kind of get like these like flat um debuffs for each
Mm,
stage you go through. And then I'm assuming they scale as well as you
I would guess
increase your
so.
weight. Instead of, right, because right now I think it's like there's maybe only like 1 or 2 stages. I guess 3. There's like overweight. Uh, is there orange state? I forget. Or is it just
I mean,
overweight and critical?
at the minute it's just overweight and critical, but some stuff
Oh,
does.
okay.
Some things do still. So I think the ergo penalty still scales in there, I believe. I've never actually tested it, but I'm pretty sure it does.
But
So
you
there are
get
some things, but yeah, it's just like 3 weights, like underweight, normal weight, critical weight
the,
at the
yeah.
moment. So yeah, you're very incentivized to either be like just underweight, or you may as well just carry loads of stuff.
Right. And I guess here it's like there's a little bit more play because like now between stage 4 and 5, it's like not only is the penalties from stage 4 increasing when I go to 5, but now there's this new penalty where I make more noise.
Yeah.
Right. So there's like a little bit more granularity between each within the overweight zone
Mm,
as far as
mm,
added penalties. It's kind of neat. I like that.
exactly. Yeah. There was a whole section about like small containers
Hmm.
to help with the step up between, if you normally go and get the junk box, it's like 1.1 million or something, but to try and just, help quality of life for like inexperienced, I guess, or more casual people. Things like, what do they have? Like a toolbox, which is like a mini junk box, ammo pouch, mag pouch, stuff like that. They would use typically like, I don't know, 4x4, 3x4, those kind of sizes that they were suggesting. I mean, that would be fine. I have nothing to say against it, really. I mean, like, ammo box is something that I usually try to do with for do without for as long as possible, but I end up having to buy one because you just got ammo like all over your stash when you start on a wipe, and it's just dreadful. They're quite expensive these days, so it's like, do I wait for the quest or do I just like manage all this ammo? I have ammo stuffed into rigs and things. Like it's horrible. It really is horrible. So I wouldn't mind. I honestly wouldn't mind more things like this. But I know BSG are like a little anti like stash avoidance. They quite like the squeeze. Probably also from a financial perspective,
That's
right?
true.
Like
I didn't think
people
about
hate
yeah.
being on the standard, and it's like part of the incentive to upgrade to EOD is like
Right.
having your balls put in a vice by the standard account.
Yeah, you can't make it too comfortable living for the standard account players. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know whether they'd actually do it or not. I'm not sure.
One like thing I like about this idea that I've kind of had is like take the tool set for example, and like what if instead of it being a fixed item, it said it was a container, and like when you looted it, maybe it would have like random stuff in there, but you could basically the idea is like this sort of risk reward scenario, kind of like what we used to have back in the day, just on a much larger scale, where you could bring in junk boxes in the raids. But like a similar concept where you could bring in like a tool set in a raid. It's like a container, and like you could loot toolbox like tool items and put it in there to like save space, and maybe the comfort things applies or whatever. But kind of like, but it's like it's an investment on some end. I don't know how much it would be, but just something to kind of spice it up a bit more. Add that extra risk reward to it.
I could see that. There was like a whole other bunch of stuff. Which
Hideout
I mean,
cap.
I'll just like, but like putting ammo stats in the game, which I think we're pretty much universally in agreement upon. And I'm also the thing from Lost Light, which is this ammo is rated against class 4 or something. If it's like 35 pen or above, up to the next threshold of like 45, just so that people have more of an idea about the ammo and the stats. Because having to go out to look at spreadsheets is not necessarily that good for the game. Like why? It's like people aren't finding out by trial and error. People are just like finding out from me or the wiki
minor,
or wherever. And if you don't do that, you just simply have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, Anton, for example, he used to do like these tests. I was like, quite some time ago.
OG.
Yeah, and then we
in
had
raid.
Like this was no offline mode. This was just like live. Him and this, dummy PC, this other PC, I guess, would record it, put up the results, and it's like it's very like crude way of doing things, but people are gonna do these things, and then the eventually we get to the point where it's like the mining or whatever. It's just like I think that's a good compromise though, is them putting in this ammo is rated for this class. Like I think he had an example, which
I think so.
I've not seen before. Like that might have been like I don't know if that seems before effective against class 4. That might have been maybe that's a mod, maybe something didn't post, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I think that's like a pretty good compromise because it's not giving you the exact detail that is kind of in of itself an arbitrary number that you need to know how the whole system functions as a whole. This is like a similar to that idea, but very like concentrated and simplified that a layperson can understand,
Yeah, which is what it needs to be in the game.
I think so, because I mean, I don't know. Like bigger bullet doesn't always mean more damage. I mean, maybe, because there's like cartridge, so like you get like there's some knowledge, but it's just like, oh man, it's a video game. Like I watched the documentary, Half-Life 25-year anniversary. So Valve put out a documentary for it, and Gabe was speaking, and he, the CEO, the founder, and he was talking about, him and some guys, they were talking in a room, and they were like, yeah, we want to put this in the game, but it's not realistic. How can we do that? And he was like, well, what do you mean it's not realistic? Realistic is like I have to go to the store every day and write down a list of items I need to buy from the grocery store and buy it, and that's realism, and that's not fun. Video games are fun. Like, who cares about realism? It's like, oh my god, yes, thank you. Finally, someone said it. Was someone?
Gabe agrees.
Yeah, I was just like,
Gabe agrees.
Thank God he said it.
Yeah, it was pretty. I saw you posted on Twitter about it, right? And I was just like, oh boy, that's like, it's a godly take. It's a godly take.
Now you see why I'm a Valve fanboy. The true colors are shown.
Mm-hmm.
What else is actually interesting? So it's just like random bits, like putting maps in special slots, like making maps actually useful. Stacking small stuff, 3 high like batteries. Comparisons in the like modding screen. There's just like a bunch of stuff, like tooltips for like quest required or hideout required stuff. It's like a lot of like other quality of life things. I don't think there's anything like super important out of this. Oh, actually, there was one that was kind of cool, which is the and feel free to go back to any of the others if you want, but like combining soft armors with armored rigs, like used to happen. And it's like, well, back
Oh,
in the day, you
like
used to be able to do it, like way before I even started playing. Like being able to put like a
right.
packer underneath, say, like, I don't know, TTSK, I think. So you can have like class 2 elsewhere. And I wonder whether that will eventually come with the armor system. I don't
That's
know.
what I'm
They
wondering
might just
too.
do it, to be honest, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that could make a return now that we got this armor hitstones coming.
Yeah,
I
like
guess
certain armors could be compatible with like underlay,
right,
whatever
like
soft
a
armors.
yeah, I could totally see like an armor rig being compatible with like an armored
Mm.
vest within reason.
Yeah, like if it's a carrier and it doesn't actually have any of its own like built-in soft armor,
Right,
then
right.
can well see it being compatible with something like a packer or whatever.
Yeah, I guess just a couple of the things I want to mention quality of life wise. Like I like the stacking of items. You could
Mm.
stack like AA batteries, which is like just kind of a nice quality of life thing. But I mean, it's in some ways I respect the hard code decision of yeah, I guess there's like very few items like bullets. Only thing I could think of, but like the very strict rule of not being able to stack items in a single cell. They each have to take up their cell, which
Yeah.
I kind of like. But then it kind of gets into that part where it's like, well, they also waste stuff, so it's like I don't know. It's just kind of what I mean. There's like some. It really sucks that this one item that weighs nothing is taking up this entire cell. You know.
Yeah. But does it
Um,
even really matter? Like, it's only because those things also don't sell for much on the flea. It's like a combination between, like, if it weighs not a lot, but it takes up one slot, but it's got high value, you don't care because you can take it anyway. It's sort of interesting, right? It's like
yes.
it's a combination of the value and the weight slash size that makes you think like, oh, this is something like no one cares about the fact that you can't stack lead X's 3 times because you don't care if it takes one slot because you're gonna get that thing hauled out of the raid
True.
anyway.
True. Yeah. 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 No, you're right. Yeah.
So it's I don't know. It's I also don't. It's just not really like it would be good, but I just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. It's a small. I
Mm.
agree. It's like a small, nice to have. The big one that I would love to have is what's shown here on the screen, where each item has a check mark that's color coded associated with it, and when you hover over it, it tells you what it's used for. Things like there's even an option for wish lists. It'll tell you if it's on your wish list, which is neat.
Mm.
But it will say like needed for lavatory, or sorry, needed for lavatory. You have X out of X currently in your stash. Like it's just kind of nice to be able to like. It's just one of those things. Like I've been playing long enough, so I have like a general idea. But every now and then I need to reference the wiki or something, and it's just like it's such a. It
It's
just feels.
boring.
It just feels like I don't know.
It's boring and feels artificial when you're like, do I need this item because I've got my my hideout to like lavatory 2 and I can't remember if this thing's for lavatory 3 or 2. Like I'm not. I can't remember. Is it for another quest or something? I forget. So I have to like go and look it up. Oh yeah, it's for this thing because the game is like too like fixed in its requirements. I guess it wouldn't prevent you from looking stuff up for the future, but it just shows you what you need like right now, which is fine. I think that'd be okay.
I'm gonna say something that might get me some flack, but in my opinion, BSG should be grateful for the wiki because otherwise, I just don't see how you reasonably expect people to tolerate this type of stuff. Because without the wiki, I could not be bothered. I think like some people would just be lost.
I think
And
that's very fair. I just don't think the quests are even really completable without it for the most people, right? Like the wiki is just the community's aggregation of the way that people have figured out to do various things. It's like the new quest got there real quick because all it takes is one person to figure it out. But like, how on earth would you even do the Lightkeeper one that I just did to find the flash drive in the 20 spots inside the water treatment plant, right? That quest is hard enough, even when you know where the spots are. And the flash drive is like minuscule. It's tiny. Sometimes it's hidden under stuff. Like it's crazy.
yeah, just there's just so many things. Like it's
And
just
the quests
weird
aren't written
because,
well enough to allow you to actually do it.
but even like the example, like I need a drill for the stash or whatever for like a hideout upgrade. It's like I wouldn't know that prior to doing it before, and then it's like, you know, without the wiki, it would just be like a really bad experience. You have to remember every time. You have to like write down a piece of paper. You know, one quality of life feature would be just putting it, integrating the game. But like in some ways, they're not really incentivized to do that because the wiki's already doing it for them. So it's just like a few different clicks. But then it's like the irritating part to me is like some of the hostility, because the hostility is towards it is like solving a problem. You know what I mean? That it's just, that's why I say in some ways I feel like there should be some like gratefulness towards the community solving the problems for, like, there's clearly a user problem, like a bad user experience that's being solved. It's not a great user experience, but it's like the best, one of the better things we could do.
Yeah, like because the wiki for Tarkov is at least actually pretty good.
Yeah, even like the Battle Buddy app, for example, like that's another, like, it's solving a problem for users, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and that solves the problem that like the ballistics chart on the wiki isn't detailed enough to tell you what's actually going on and really to make like fully informed decisions. Like it gives you an idea and really tell you what's actually happening until you like drill down even further and go and look into these things. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like without the wiki, you almost could argue that the community could like, you know, would complain. Maybe it just wouldn't have got there because BSG wouldn't have done it. But like the community may have like complained into getting some of this stuff in the game. But because the community's like found its own solution now, as you said, BSG don't need to because it's already been solved by someone else. There's almost this sort of like weird, like it's almost like moral hazard about it. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting relationship because I feel like, you know, I've heard other people speak on BSG's behalf. Like, you know, I don't know if this is actually BSG's stance, but my understanding is that they're very, like, they wanted the game to be like this grand puzzle that people had to like just figure out. You know, they wanted like, you just had to figure out if the ammo's good or not type of mentality, you know, like you, whatever.
Yeah.
And so they were like sort of like hostile towards doing anything on their part. So the community's like, okay, fine, we're gonna do something. And then I just wonder if the things weren't, because when I played the game, I heard about the importance of the ammo chart and I had to look it up and I had to study and I had to memorize it and I had to like figure out what it meant. And it significantly improved my experience playing the game, because God, I would hate to be playing the game and using some crappy ammo and just like wondering why I'm dying. You know what I mean? So how much of the success of Tarkov is an indirect product of the wiki and the community solving the problems for, you know what I mean? That's just an interesting relationship.
Exactly, a lot, yeah. I think the BSG have like softened their stance on that a lot over the years, because the wiki's like, you know, allowed. It was even allowed. You know, they had the no third party help thing, and it was even allowed for that. Like, I think the wiki's just become like they're symbiotic at this point. It's part of the game.
I think
it's
so.
part of the experience. Yeah,
yeah.
I think they do know that.
I just feel like the next step, which, you know, probably is the next step, but just sort of like putting aside that old mentality, because I just wonder how. We'll see. You know, will that continue?
So there was the very last piece. I know we've talked about this for quite a long time now, but the very last piece that I actually disagreed with was about basically like artificially extending the amount of time that it takes people to get through the quest lines by time gating the quest. Not necessarily for like 24 hours, but like 6 hours, say, between each quest, like each parts of Chemical, each parts of Punisher, that kind of thing. And I just don't really know what that is going to achieve, other than like, yeah, it'll slow down the people who want to keep playing, but I don't know really if like I think there's better ways to go about that. If you it depends on what outcome you actually want, right? Just like slowing down the player base, yeah, you could lock traders off globally until a certain amount, but allow people to still get rep and whatever. I don't think like stopping people from questing and giving them 24 hours or 6 hours to wait for the next one is really a very good experience for the people who like to grind. And Tarkov's like quite a grindy game, right? So you have to appreciate that some of the players are going to be the grinder type. I don't know. It doesn't sit that well with me. Like some of the Lightkeeper quests are time gated, some of the Gunsmith quests are time gated, and it's quite annoying, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I share a similar opinion. I mean, I had said something to the effect, comment on the video, and I said something to the effect of, I just don't like it when a game punishes me for being efficient with my time. I
Mm,
think that's like kind of the most reductive way I could put it. It's like, it's how it feels. Like I was doing the gunsmiths, and it's like you get blocked, and it's like, well, I can't go any further. Like I want to go further because I get more XP. Maybe I unlock some attachment I really, value. It's like I can't. I just have to sit. Like I basically have no reason to keep playing the game because that was what I wanted to do. But now the game's
yeah.
saying you can't be efficient with your time. You need to you need to pace yourself, which is weird because most games, like especially live service games, they're all about like wanting you to keep playing. It's like, oh, if you
Mm,
play 5 more hours, you get this free reward or whatever. So it's kind of weird, but maybe that's fine for Tarkov. But I just think it's kind of a bad way of like. I respect the position he wants to like, or the goal he wants to achieve is like slowing down the progression of the game. Like it is kind of crazy that people get cap in like, what was it, like 9 days?
something like that, I
Like
think is the.
I mean, shout out to the grind and the skill and the capacity to do all that. It's just like, but that's kind of, I mean, that's crazy to me. It's just a lot. But in general, I just feel like there's too much. I don't know. It's just there's such a big importance. I mean, I've said this a million times. I really like the early wipe experience. I don't like using the best stuff all the time, and especially that the meta has been so figured out and so solved. It just becomes very stale and stagnant. Early wipe's really fun, exciting because you have small glimpses of those moments where you have to make interesting decisions. It's like, I don't have this. I have such limited things I can reliably have. I found something that's like, useful. Maybe it's like a suppressor. It's like, oh, do I use it? But it's not like an ideal suppressor. It's not even ideal for the gun I'm using. So I have to get a new gun. It's like, is this worth? Should I just sell? Like, there's a lot more
Mm,
things to decide on. So I feel like keeping more of that in the game, I like that experience a lot. It's what I value. But some people
yeah.
like the experience of I'm constantly using the best stuff, the very like skill skill crowd, which I feel like I'm leaning more from our last podcast. I feel like I'm leaning more into like Tarkov is more in like the high skill, high luck category, but
Yeah.
exactly where it sits, I don't really know. Um
Yeah, like some of the ones I don't mind a 20, like a time gate like here and there. That doesn't bother me too much. Like if they want to keep that like, oh, you can't do Lightkeeper too fast because it's like, you got to build your reputation with him. It's almost like part of the story. Then I'm like not as fussed, but like putting it between every quest, like if they're trying to lean into the narrative more, then like I kind of get it. But like for me, there has to be a purpose. It has to be like, oh, mechanic needs to go and do whatever, right? But like Tarkov's so light on the story right now that it just feels awkward and clumsy being in the game and just feels bad. That's my position.
so what you're saying is like you don't mind it if it's in the story, or were you saying you don't mind it if it's like in the gameplay like rep and whatnot?
I don't mind it if it's like part of the story. Like if there's like a rationale as to why the block is there.
Okay, so if
Like
as long as it
mechanics
fits within
like
the fiction of the game,
yeah,
then it's
something that
fine.
fits within
Okay.
the fiction of the game, and it's like you're trying to get to like even mechanics got to go and deliver him something. He's just like, look, you got to wait like a couple of hours before I come back and blah blah. And so long as it's not too often, I don't want like every quest to be blocked in between because then it starts to get annoying, right? It's like okay, well, maybe now this is realistic, but this is actually just a pain in the ass. And especially with Gunsmith, like part of the joy of Gunsmith is just going, right, today's Gunsmith day. And you just sit down and you just like go build, 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 build. And it's actually cool. It's just like the dopamine, progression
Yeah, you do get.
hit that you want. You get like 8 in a row or
Yeah.
whatever. And you collect all your rewards and you're just like, I'm rich now. Although they've made the rewards not quite as good. But even still, it's nice to do them, sit down, do them one at a time. But yeah, if you get like, you can only do 3 or something and then you get blocked and then you have to do another 3 and then get blocked. I just end up forgetting to do them. I'm just like, oh, I gotta do like 3 more. But then I feel like I have to do the next one because I know there's a 24-hour time gate after it.
Right.
But I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like doing it right now. But like, if I don't do it, I can only do that one, and then I can't do any more. So I have to do this next one, even though I don't really want to. It puts like weird psychology on you, right, most of the time. So like, yeah, if it's used sparingly and it's used in certain very specific situations for like a big event like meeting the Lightkeeper, and it's like, oh, you got to wait 6 hours, I'll set everything up and then you can go and meet him, and it's like, yeah, part of the narrative, then it's fine. But I think I even think now it's probably too much, and putting more in is just going to make the game like more annoying, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't really like it. I just don't think it's like the intended target isn't hits. Like I'm assuming the intended target is the speedrunners, and like you just hit everyone equally and flat. It's just, you know, I don't know. I prefer no time gates personally, but that's just me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, was there anything else?
I think that's it. Kind of covered it piece by piece. Good video though. Agree with 95% of what's in there.
Good production value as well.
Super good production. Go and watch it if you haven't, because it's just nice to. It's visually appealing.
Yeah,
you know? Fun to watch. A treat for the eyes. So, what next? Do you want to do anything specific, or do you want to talk about Nakwon a little bit? I probably won't talk about it that much, but
sure. Tell me about Nakwon. What's
So we talked about Nakwon before, a little bit at least. We talked about it before. Maybe like when was it? Like a month ago? Because there's like a bunch of different stuff coming up, and it's not really like it's an extraction shooter of sorts. But it's gonna be very different, right? It's not really like Tarkov at all, to be totally honest. It's much more like, I guess, a DayZ sort of like a low scale DayZ sort of like Last of Us kind of game.
That's what I was gonna say. It kind of reminds me of Last of Us a bit.
Yeah, that's kind of how it's going to be, I think. So yeah, it's third person for start, but I think that's not necessarily bad, depending on how it ends up panning out. I think that's maybe okay. It's basically like post-apocalyptic zombie type game with a strong focus on like the stealth aspect. It seems like you can buy weapons like revolvers and whatever, but it seems unwise from what I've seen so far, because like all the zombies run at you. It's like the proper dinner bell kind of situation.
Oh, right, of course.
So most of the combat is done with melee. It appears. I don't know whether there's like crossbows and stuff that are silent. Maybe. I mean, maybe there'll be the end game weapons or something. I'm not really sure. Like, there's not that many details yet. But what's changed between when this released or kind of came out in the first place as being a game that's on the radar is they released like a 22-minute gameplay trailer of somebody like going through a raid, and it's a lot of sneaking around, not waking up the zombies. The thing about the zombies is that you can kill them or disable them, quote unquote, with like about 6 hits of various things. But it's like 7 hits with a 2x4 plank. Is kind of the idea. But they resurrect after like 3 to 5 minutes. You can't actually ever kill the zombies. Like they're not killable, I don't believe. They're only disableable.
You shoot them if that rule still applies, or if it's different.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. But I think like in general, they're designed to be not like, you're not supposed to just brute force your way through. You're supposed to be mostly stealth. But there's quite a lot of interesting mechanics that I quite like. There's it's PvPvE. But the good weapons against the zombies are like the clubs and the planks and stuff. It's all the blunt weapons. And the good weapons against other players are all the sharp weapons like swords and whatever. And the lacerating weapons don't really do anything to the zombies because they don't care. So you have to hit them with the clubs. So it's sort of like this, this mix between stuff that you use to fight against players versus the ones you were talking about a game, weren't you, that was similar to that, where you had like guns for shooting at AI or something. Was it a space game?
Yeah, it was that. God, I can't remember the name. It was some.
That one you were playing.
Dead Zone, Star Siege, something like that. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, and that had like different ammo types and stuff. And I guess it's a little bit sort of like the cycle in some ways as well. There's ammos against different like the armors for it's like PvE versus PvP. It's it's a thing that we've seen a few times, but that's kind of interesting to have it on melee and the fact that they're kind of unkillable. But yeah, you can like you throw bricks and stuff to distract the zombies, and you're supposed to get in, loot stuff, and then get out. And there's like 3 different types of extract. You have like a PDA like tablet, and you have like your personal extract, which is a manhole cover with like a like a code lock on it that only responds to your PDA. So you've got your own one. So every person gets their own like random extract. Then there's public extracts that anybody can take, but they only appear like halfway through or later into the session. And then there are like secret ones that you have to like find on the map, which is kind of interesting. So it's like there's not really the ability to extract camp unless you go out of the if you go out of your private one, like no one else knows what that one is. Like maybe they'll be set, so who knows? Eventually, maybe people figure it out. But given you all get a random like manhole to leave out of, it feels like extract camping is sort of dealt with that way. If you want to avoid it, like it gives you like a safe exit from PvP if you so wish. Like the thing that I'm more interested in that, like as there's basically no details about at all at the moment, is that you go back from the raids to your like camp, and then you live as a citizen. You have to like pay rent. You have a citizen grade. Like you're compelled to like go out. If you're a low grade citizen, you have to go out on the scavenger hunt like every time that it comes around, like once a day, I think. But as you go up your citizen rank, you can like not go and you can like rest and stuff. So like maybe if you're like injured, like as a low grade citizen, you just have to go anyway because you're just like the basic grunt. Like as you go up the ranks, like you can like not go out as often and stuff. Like I don't know how any of that works, and I'm kind of that's the part that really intrigues me about the game, because that could be the bit that's like actually really cool. Like we've seen this kind of game before, and it's those elements of like the society and how the economy works and like how the rank system works and what that looks like for progression. Like we just don't really know anything about that at the moment, and I'm interested to see the actual. So I mean, if you want to try it, the game, I'm trying to find out where the thing is. Yeah, so the game is, there's a pre-alpha test on the 30th of November until the 4th of December. So I mean, I want to give it a try. Yeah. So in a week, basically a week on Thursday until the 5th of December. So yeah, it's open for about 5 days.
Wishlist on Steam. Okay. I mean, I think I might do the same here.
Yeah. If you want to wishlist it on Steam through the link in the video I did about why buying Tarkov now is a good idea, then like feel free. There's obviously on the podcast, like this is not part of the sponsorship or anything, but like it would probably help if you could go wishlist it anyway, because it goes and helps me out. But either which way, like I'm going to be playing it a bit just to see what it's like. I like new stuff. I like seeing the concepts. Apparently some people are allergic to it, but I like seeing people just creating new things, and we get to see iterations on the genre. Like as you can see in the trailer, for anybody who's watching on video, like the noise you make is visually represented around you as like a ring. Right. So when you're walking, there's no noise, and as you run, there's like this sort of visual ring of noise around you. So you have to like try and keep that down, otherwise you can wake the zombies up. You can distract. Like when I was watching the trailer with sound on, it's quite like it's quite intimidating actually, because if you like you're like running backwards from a zombie, like trying to hit them with a club, you bump into a car and you like set the car alarm off. It's like it's like nice. It's quite. I don't know. It looks kind of like nicely done at least. I don't know whether the gameplay itself will end up being exciting enough to want you to keep playing. I think I don't know where it really goes from there. Like obviously it's PvE, so like each time it's gonna be different and blah blah blah. But like they've really said in quite a few places, like guns are super limited. Like South Korea is a very like non-gun place. There really aren't many like handguns and shotguns. Like the ammo is more expensive than the weapons. There's not many weapons in SK anyway, so don't expect to be using like guns really. And also they're ill-advised. So I think it's very unlikely you're going to be like operating around with like suppressors on. I don't think that's the vibe of the game. I mean, it might be, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm intrigued. I'm certainly intrigued. Like I was reading more around like the lore and stuff, because they've got a Discord with like a bunch of lore. There's like a thing called like records of Nakwon, how it all began, or like Nakwon introduction. And there's like, they've actually got like kind of the basic tutorials already up on Discord, like Scouting Guide for Novice, Guide on Basic Movement. Like I read through all of this when I was, because they contacted for the promotion, and I was like, oh, there's actually loads more stuff. So I like read it all, and I was just like, oh, I'm definitely going to play this. So like, let's just see what it's going to be about. I think it's going to be kind of fun. It's going to be fun to check out, even if it's not one that we end up playing a ton. But yeah, as I said, iteration on the genre is always good.
I don't know if this is tasteless or not, and you don't have to answer, but I'm curious. Like you said, they reached out to you. Is that like just a random occurrence? Was that like through an agency of some sort, or is it?
It was through the agent. Yeah, through my agency. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was through the agency. Yeah. So I mean, they're basically just trying to get like eyes on the release of the pre-alpha.
As they should.
Right. It's like it's a marketing thing. So I imagine other people will also be showcasing it, and I don't see any harm in that. Right? Like, here's something new that's releasing. Go try it. Like it's not. That's the thing that's even better about it. It's not even like go buy the game, right? It's just
Right.
like
It's like
go and participate and just like see whether you like it. Like it's
Yeah.
very innocuous as far as I'm concerned.
I think for me personally, the most interesting part is that social element you mentioned. Like I assume it's social. Like maybe if it's not, I'll be not as interested. But the idea of like you going back to your camp and like you're working for some shitty guy that you don't really want to be working for, but you have to, and you're survivor. You're like the grunt. You're gonna work your way up the ranks and take over this town. Become the big boss. Stuff like that. That's honestly what got me into like survival genre was like effectively that open world Rust type social element because it's like I've played other survival games that don't really have that. It's like Don't Starve Together, for example. It's more of like a game with friends. Which is like a different
Don't
type
Starve is such a depressing game if you play it on your own. Holy shit.
Yeah. Dude, that game is tough. And it's like you gotta know a lot about it, honestly. But I had fun with that, but I just something about the survival genre where it like pits you against other players, but like you need to work together. It's like you don't have to like each other necessarily, but like sometimes you make good friendships and like rivals and nemesis. Like I don't know, the adding that social element because typically multiplayer games that I've played, it's like you're kind of like innocuous. Like you don't really like you're there just to be a player against the other person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like very like challenging your skill. Whereas like this is like you can still have that skill challenging aspect, but then you have like this skill, if you will, in like a social game or like luck also is people we're not always logical 100% time, sometimes we're just emotional things. So it's really makes things super interesting. Like Mafia is like a classic, tabletop social game that I like stuff like that. It's really interesting.
I think it depends on how they do it, as you say, like, but it could be kind of cool because, like, in Tarkov, you do your raid, you like meet the people, you betray people, or whatever, or you kill PMCs, then you go back to your hideout because, like, you're ultimately on your own in Tarkov.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in this, you go back to like civilization, and like they say, like, whatever happens out in the lawless zone happens in the lawless zone. But like, if you kill a dude, and then you go back to base and like you're both there, that's like kind of awkward. You know what I mean? Like you could get a reputation for being, I don't know, like
that's why I wonder what are the ramifications of this stuff?
Are the ramifications? Yeah. Does it matter? Do you have to work with other players like on the safe zone side to get stuff done? And then that would impact like because out in the wild, I think it's just it's literally just every man for himself and there's no repercussions.
Oh. Well, let's see.
From the law perspective. But there may be social repercussions, right? If you're
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Like no mechanical repercussions, but now there's like social stigma. Like
yeah. So I don't know really. That's as I said, that's the thing that's going to be fascinating. And it says like you have to pay your rent in the city and whatever. So you have to like loot enough to like make a living.
Yeah. like if there's a social side to that stuff, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Right up my alley.
It's kind of what like twigged my.
I just have
interest.
Yeah. I just want to be a shitty landlord. That's all I want to be.
Sorry, rent going up. Landlord.
Yeah. How I made built an empire by not going once into the danger zone. Just became a shitty landlord. And yeah.
Oh man.
Rent's due is going to be 5 more broken shotguns this month.
You become Prapor.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah.
Giving out your own quest.
That's interesting. Yeah. I'll definitely check it out.
Pretty cool. Yeah, the other like I'll just make a quick note on it, but the other game I was like looking for I was trying to scratch the itch of like a permanently on game. Like I played a game a million years ago that I've talked about previously on ScavTalk called Chatter Galaxy, and it was like a MMO RTS. And the joy of it was like 3 factions constantly warring over like hexagonal grids, and your individual units built up like an RPG, like levels wise, and you could like change the loadout of each individual unit and stuff. And ever since that closed down, I've been like looking for something forevermore that's kind of like that sort of. And yeah, so in a band said in chat like PlanetSide 2, sort of, yeah, kind of, a little bit like that kind of game. But I was like, I have been fishing around recently, and I stumbled upon the game Foxhole. which I've
I've
played
heard about
like
that. Yeah.
some of it now, and yeah, it's intriguing. So the way that Foxhole works is there's two factions, and it's like hexagonal grids. There's permanent battles going on, but every like you go to the front and you like grab a gun and like some ammo and like go to the front lines and die or whatever. But like every like piece of ammo, every gun, every tank, every shell, every artillery piece, the building, everything, all made by somebody at some point. So like behind the front line is this like logistical network of people driving trucks, like getting
Yeah.
resources, creating stuff in factories, refining materials. It's like actually nuts. Like the scale of it is kind of crazy. The fact that like there's so many people contributing towards like the war effort.
Right.
And it's intriguing. I still don't know whether I enjoy it or not yet. It's like one of those like weird games. I'm like, do I like this or not? Like I like the concept. Do I like how this actually pans out? Like I'm not sure. But it's still like it's very intriguing at the moment. There's like a lot to read, which I quite like. And I like reading into different mechanics and systems. There's like anti-structure, anti-tank, anti-infantry, like try how to deal with like mechanized vehicles. There's like infantry people, and like you can kind of go wherever. So there are ways to make automated base defenses, which is like one of the mechanics in the game to stop people just going like wherever. You don't have to have everything manned at all times. But outside of those, like unless you're going to so outside of like the main bases, you can kind of just like wander wherever you want. You could just like get a motorbike or something, or like a push bike even, and just like cycle into the enemy's backlines, like sit in a trench, wait for a logistics vehicle to go past, and just like light it up with a machine gun.
Oh, that's fun.
And like kill the guy and like scrap the vehicle off the side to like mess with their production, their backline, which like indirectly then helps the front because then their soldiers don't have like constant resupply of like ammo and meds and weapons or whatever. Like even like games like Battlefield or whatever, you tend to have maps where you've got spawn tickets, and the team that ends up with 0 spawn tickets loses because people can't spawn in anymore. Well, there's like a version of that in this. They're called like soldier supplies, but they look like a shirt. So everyone just calls them shirts. But shirts have to be like brought to the base. So as like more and more people like flooding in to like fight the battle, these supplies go down. And if you don't have anybody bringing them back in, like no one can respawn at the base. So like the other side kind of ends up winning. So it's like, but the spawn tickets get brought in by like they get made somewhere and they get in the factories and they get brought in by the logistic vehicles. Like it's crazy. And yeah, it goes on for like it's like the walls are like 2-3 weeks up to like a month, like a month and a bit, something like that. And then somebody wins, and then the devs like reset everything and they like reconfigure it, and then they restart the next war. It's like it's as I said, I really love the concept.
Right.
Practically speaking, whether like I would say it's quite addictive once you sort of get into it. You get like kind of invested. I've like you end up seeing the same people multiple times because like
that's really cool. Yeah.
The only thing about it is it's quite dominated by clans because, as you might imagine, with a lot of resource gathering and like organizing big operations, you have to sort of have more organization. So going in as like an individual person, it's like not necessarily that easy to understand how you can help to start with because you're like, well, I'm just like one dude doing one dude things. I'm trying out like all the different roles. So I've been on the front line. I've tried being medic. I've tried going in the back line and being like saboteur behind the scenes. I've tried driving a logistics vehicle that one time. I'm like trying out all the different roles just to sort of figure the whole game out. But it's fun. I'm enjoying myself just like in the learning process. But like once I've learned everything, will I go and playing it? I don't know yet. I'm not sure. That's what I'm like fiddling around with at the moment.
I feel like the question for me is like, as you're saying, you're not sure if you're having fun or not. It's like, is it a game or is it just another job?
Like, it's like definitely like starts to border on that. No, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's just weird. Maybe I don't know. Maybe all games are jobs. You just work for enjoyment, essentially.
Exactly. And like there's something kind of nice sometimes about just doing like brain dead menial stuff. Sometimes.
Sure.
And the fact that you can just like dip into each different bit if you want. You're just like, oh, I've been like fighting for ages, whatever. Or like I'm just like chilling in Discord with my homies. And just drive the Logi vehicle up and down, like grabbing guns for the team or whatever. Like if you're just like chatting, it's like you don't need. It's like watching TV, right? It's like kind of like that, like just watching brainless TV. You could also be doing that, like rather than doing an intensive like backline activity, because that's like that's like the proper game is doing the fighting in the front. Trying to storm the trenches and go around and like block stuff off. But yeah, there's lots of like menial things that are sort of, they don't take anywhere near as much brain power, but someone still has to do them. Yeah, it's certainly interesting.
There's absolutely everything you described is absolutely exists in Rust. Like someone's got to hit the tree to get the wood, to put it in the furnaces, so we can get the metal to upgrade the base or craft this or do this. Someone's got to be the farmer. Who's gonna do it? It's funny because before I played Tarkov, the last like time I really played Rust was I had joined a Zerg, a giant clan. That's what they're called, Zergs. And how I joined it was in a previous wipe, I had sort of like befriend them, even though they were like kind of enemies in our little like local village. Like our little, there was like a little section of this area that was like me as a solo, and like I had teamed up with some other randoms with the kind of neighbors. We were all kind of friendly. We were kind of like anti against the clan that was like over the mountain because they had a really big base. They would just come and bully us or whatever. And so we kind of ended up having like a small alliance, so to speak. And what ended up happening is I ended up helping them and then like kind of like befriending them. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll play a wipe for you guys next wipe. And so I got to experience like that whole dynamic. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's like you got like a leader. It's very like bizarre in a sense, but it's like someone's got to run this operation. You know what I mean? Like, so you got like all these roles delegated stuff, and it's interesting. But yeah, definitely like it's an interesting space because I can see, you just want to play, in your case, a game, and then it's like, well, I don't want to like, or anybody really, it's like you don't really want to like, you may be opposed to like interacting with strangers and what that brings, especially with like people internet, and especially when you put into context, they may be playing this game upwards of like 12 hours a day. It's like you're likely to run into some degenerates here and there.
Yeah, I will say, to be fair, for the most part, everyone's been like super good, and there's
oh, that's really good.
There seems to be quite a lot of like new people as well. They did a big update, I think, and there's like a bunch of new people. Like lots of people are just like happy to answer questions, but you run into some funny situations. Oh my god, there was a guy, like I ran into a guy who was like trying to use a crane to offload a pallet of barbed wire into a base, and he was just like, I don't know why this isn't working. Like I can't make this work. And there's just like pallets. This crane, this guy just like trying to like crane stuff. I was like, what is going on? I like stumbled upon this dude just like trying this logistical operation, like getting this stuff off a flatbed. And someone was just like, no, you can't, like, there's no mechanic to just like, you can't just like crane the barbed wire pallet into the base. That's not how it works. Right? You have to put the pallet on the ground and then you have to move the crates with like real people. Like you can't just put, like, it's not going to get in there on its own, right? You have to like move the crates with actual hands. Like that's how this functions. He's like, oh, that's funny. See. Because there's like lots of people like trying random stuff and people being like, no, you can't do that, because of X, Y, Z. Like this, the community, the veteran community seems actually very helpful.
That's good.
And they all seem, I guess, because it's like very side focused as well. So
yeah, it's like one side.
If I help you,
other, right.
And once you've chosen your side for that war, you're like locked in. Well, so like they're not just going to suddenly switch to the enemy side. They're on my side for the rest of the war. So like if I help them, then they're going to like help my side win. Is sort of the general vibe. So. Did you want to just talk about the PUBG one before we?
Yeah, I just mentioned it briefly. PUBG. I don't even. Actually, maybe you should just tell, because I don't even remember where I think I saw it from Hey Z, but I don't know how the story originally broke. Apparently, PUBG Studios is making or working on an extraction shooter. The team that worked. I had to look it up a little because I was like a little confused. Like PUBG. I don't know. It's kind of a weird game because it was like apparently some Korean studio, I think it was Korean, Blue Hole Interactive, whatever. Someone there, top guy, wanted to make something like a DayZ battle, what we know as battle royales, which originally was like a mod that what's his name? Brandon? Is it Brandon? Nah, it's not Brandon. What's his name? Player Unknown. The guy. He's like kind of like created this mod and whatever. And so they approached him or something. It's like, hey, come work for us or whatever, and we'll make your dream game. And he was like, deal. And then PUBG happened. And then that studio, through a couple different, reacquisitions or whatever. It's now like PUBG.
What they call it now, like Crafton or something. The
dude, I don't remember.
they're the publisher at least.
There's someone above them that owns everything. I can't remember. It's funny because Tencent has like 5% stake in the company. It's like they were originally trying to acquire them back like some time ago, which was kind of interesting, but that didn't end up happening. Anyways, point being is like, I guess for me personally, I don't really know what's there to be. Like Hayes seemed really excited about it, but I know he's like he played a lot of DayZ. I played DayZ a tiny bit back in the day, and all I remember was my PC could not run it, so the FPS was awful, and the performance was really bad, and it played and felt really janky to me. Now it's come a long. My understanding has come a long way since those days, but I don't know how much weight I put into the studio simply because I don't know how much weight the player unknown brought to the table. You know, like if he's not involved in this, does that matter? If he's involved, does that matter? That's my only thing. I don't really know enough to really say one thing or the other, but hey, they're working on a extraction game, as many people are, and maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, there's very few piece of information. Apparently, it was like a report to investors or something. There was like this Project Black Budget, which is this extraction shooter type thing that they're supposedly working on. I mean, yeah, so we just don't know anything about it at the moment. But like, as per the article that I've like ended up opening up here, it's like here's all the people that have like tried and failed. It's the battlefield is littered with those that attempted it.
How many? What are the? Can you list off a few? I'm curious.
What does it say? The biggest casualties. This is about. Is this about people who turned or not? It says like Rumble versus Iron Galaxy. I don't Brawler Royale melee-based approach to battle royale. Because this is like battle royale ones, I think. And then, where is it? Yeah, and then it said like Apex Legends Mobile. And that's the startling about face for mobile adoption of its battle royale. The game shut down in May. This is about battle royales, not even about extraction shooters.
Yeah.
Ubisoft's Ghost Recon Frontline and Hyperscope, 2 battle royales that drew little attention.
Maybe they don't understand it's a battle royale. The article that's an extraction game, not a BR article that publishes.
Yeah, and then it basically just says like, if extraction shooters are where the smart money is headed, is what they'll find when they get there. In addition to Tarkov and Warzone, They've listed Hunt, Second Extinction, I've never heard of. That's in early access and is on Xbox, I think. It's like some dinosaur thing. Tarkov Frontier, which obviously we know closed, and then Dark and Darker. It's kind of what they've listed as like competition, I suppose, or like things in the genre. Not mentioning the whole, what was it called? The Battlefield one, Hazard Zone.
So, if you can even call it an extraction shooter, yeah.
I never played it in the end because just the base game was so bad. Yeah. It does feel like one of those things, though, doesn't it? Where it's like every studio is looking at the extraction genre, going like, "I bet we could do it. I bet we could do it. I bet we could do it." Yeah, what did I actually say? They're crafting themselves to popularize the extraction shooter genre. And they said, "Here's the thing: it might be popular enough already."
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was like you had PUBG, and then like Fortnite was the really big one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Fortnite was like the.
I mean, that's the thing. Like PUBG was enormous.
Yeah.
And then Fortnite was just like so large that everybody knew about it across the world, like that sort of scale.
Fortnite was like the I can't even think of a good analogy.
It's kind of like the blockbuster movie, it's like that AAA movie, whatever you call them, like the biggest. It's like the Barbie movie, whereas PUBG was just like a very successful like cult classic. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And it's also like yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think so, because definitely it's just like the most. I don't know. I didn't really play a lot of Fortnite, but it seems like the most like broad appealing thing, whereas PUBG maybe is a little, comparatively speaking, is probably not as broad appealing as something like, I think Fortnite is like more family friendly, so there's even more market share there. You know, young children aren't allowed to play PUBG because gun's scary. But oh look, Banana Man with gun. Now that's cute. That's cute. You can play that, Billy.
Uh,
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think that's it for today, at least.
Well, with that, be sure to hop in on that sale, even though you can't when you're getting this on recording. And be sure to, I'll post Giga's YouTube video. Check out his promotion there for the sponsorship there for if you want to download the game on the 30th.
Yeah, check it out on the 30th. I think we'll have actually by the time that we get to we'll be in the middle of the period, the start period actually, so maybe we could talk about it a bit if we've like played it. I'm not, hopefully the timing will work. We'll have to check, but maybe we'll have been able to try it for a day and then we can talk about it a bit. Who knows?
Yeah, I really hope, man. I mean, they may not have anything ready for the social stuff, but that would be really cool. I'd really like that. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up here. As always, thanks everyone tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.